Hi, welcome to the Owatonna Today Show. I am Shelley Whitehead. The Owatonna Today Show has a long history here in Owatonna, and we are doing a flashback program. I'm so excited for you to see this. You're going to recognize the host, Todd, Hale, and also a little look at some people who have made an impact right here in the Owatonna community. Enjoy this program brought to you specially from the Owatonna Today Show.
Owatonna as they saw it. This date of our taping is October the 8th of 1993. 85 years ago, our guest, George A.M. Anderson, was born here in Owatonna and has been a part of Owatonna history for all of those years, continues to be as such, and we are happy to have him here as our guest. Hello, everybody. Todd Hale is my name. I am your host here on Owatonna as they saw it, to again talk with an individual who meant so much, part of our history and our business, our industry, and some of the very positive aspects of our community as well. George, thanks for coming.
Nice being here, Todd.
Appreciate having you here with us. As we said, George was born here in town. Where in town?
I was born in the corner of Elm and Mill Street.
Elm and Mill.
That's right. So just across the street from where Ben Darby was born.
Okay. All
About
right.
2 weeks before I was born.
Is that is that house still around now, or
that house is still there? Yeah. And then in the same block, why Bob Adair lived up the block. So the three of us kind of all grew up together all through high school.
Oh, you did, yeah. Yes. So you're at really where you're living now in Rice. You aren't too far away from the home place, are you? Then
too close.
Yes, for sure. When you think of George A.M. Anderson, you think of a number of things, and the first thing I think about, obviously, is the King Company. That is going to be the subject of some of our interview here today, and also George was involved in the inception of what is known today as the Owatonna Foundation, which has certainly benefited our community in so many, many ways. So we're going to talk about that as well here. I think a lot of people probably want to know what AM stands for, huh?
Well, some people say morning, and some say after midnight. But it's two of my grandparents' names, Andrew and Morse, M-O-R-S-C, the telephone Morse family.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you go with that AM in high school?
I did, and well, I did when I got up to university. In our foundry class, the reading off the casting, it's the G-A-M-A, he said Gamma. So that was the name I received in the university, and about the only name I knew up there for a long time.
Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Now, your father was, when you were born, was he in business here in Owatonna?
My father was a traveling salesman for Jenny Semple Hill, a hardware firm. And in his travels, he traveled down to Adams, Minnesota, where there was a man by the name of Louis Klima, had a hardware store, and in the back end of the hardware store, he made galvanized steel cupolas. They were so popular at the time because the hay in the mows would heat and cause spontaneous combustion. There are many farm fires due to spontaneous combustion of the hay in the mows. But by putting these ventilators on the roof, it removed the heat and would prevent the combustion. So that is the way the ventilator business got started. And down in Adams, the business was growing, and they didn't have shipping facilities. And Father was living in Owatonna at that time. And so they brought the King Company to Owatonna, where we had 3 railroads. And each railroad had quite a number of freight trains each day. And in fact, the King Company used the railroads up to 1955 or something like that for receiving steel and for doing some shipping. But that is the way it got to Owatonna.
How did the name come about, the King
Company? The name, well, when it came to Owatonna, it was a galvanized steel cupola company, and they had a building down where Jerry's parking lot is. And the Urban Brothers were 2 of their early tinsmiths.
Okay, sure.
And then they called it the King Aerator, and then it changed again to the King Company. And this was brought about by the fact that a Professor King at the University of Wisconsin had written a book on the ventilation of schoolhouses and farm buildings. And he had a theory of ventilation for farm buildings of taking the foul air off the floor and removing it up, getting it out off the roof on a natural draft situation. There was no electricity at that time, see. So that that's how they got the name from the book that was published by Professor King.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Really? And never was changed. Never was changed.
Nothing regal about it.
Nothing regal about it. No. It never was changed to Anderson's or anything else, was it? It was. So the first plant of the King Company was down by Urban's then. Is that right? Is that?
Well, it was down. Well, I guess Urban were in there for a while after they moved down on Cedar Street.
Okay.
But in 1915-16, why they had to expand and they built a building down on Cedar Street where the canning company is. And they had 3 expansions down there. And they were building just the straight ventilators in those days. And Todd, they were selling over 100 of those ventilators a day. I think there were 2 livery stables in town at that time. And each one of them had 2 sets of draft horses on flatbeds hauling ventilators from the factory to the 3 railroad stations.
Okay.
Yeah.
And they shipped them where? All over the country?
They shipped them all over the country. That's right. My father sold ventilators for ventilating the J.C. Penney farm in New Jersey and the Washington Writing Club. And but even many of them went east, far east.
I would guess when that started then, most of those were handmade. I mean, there wasn't a lot of machinery involved,
well,
was there?
wasn't too much machinery. No, there was a lot of handwork.
Yeah.
You know, on the patterns particularly. And then there's some presses, of course, for forming and
I see.
rounding. Yeah.
So you were fast becoming known in an area that was it very competitive at the time, or were you kind of a one?
It was very competitive, and Louis Klima was the manager of the company at that time, and he was real high on advertising, and he was advertising in Hord's Dairyman and doing too much advertising to the fact that when business leveled off, they were in dire financial straits.
They were.
And that was in the early 20s. And
things were not easy.
well, no, things weren't easy. And then, of course, when REA came in, that killed the natural draft necessity, and everything went to power ventilation.
I see.
And so they got into power ventilation. But a job that used to cost $1,000 or $2,000 for one ventilating system would cost a few hundred when you got into power.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, it did. But you were forced into that, really.
Forced into that, that's right.
Now, then, this down by the canning company was the second home, really, of the King Company.
That was the second home, yes.
Now, how long did you stay there, and when did you move again?
Stayed there until 1969, when we moved to the industrial park.
Okay, one of the first residents out there.
We were the first one to buy land, but then the land wasn't suitable for us. We sold it to Harry Winger.
Well, you did.
And Harry got started before we did.
Oh, is that right? Really? Okay. All right. So you ended up going over but on the highway there, then, didn't you? Did you find another piece of land, or?
Well, yes. We got the other piece of land right off the highway.
Right off the highway. George, now when did you become involved in the business? From the very beginning, when you were a kid in school, or what?
No, my father passed away around Christmas in 1936, and I was in the East at the time getting some experience in factory work, and so I came back and stayed here at that time, went in, and then I took over the presidency in 1940.
In 1940?
Yeah.
And your plant at that time was down on Cedar then?
No, that was
still...
Well, no, that's right. It was down on Cedar Street.
On Cedar Street, yeah, and you took over the presidency.
Yeah, that's right.
You remember how many employees you had at that time?
Well, it varied a great deal. It got to the point where in the 30s, with the Depression of the 30s, they had people coming in, call in to work in the factory, and there were three families in management, and at that time, why the company paid the grocery bills, and
they did.
the management got practically nothing. See?
That's not always the way it goes, huh?
But,
was there ever a time that when you were president that things were questionable whether the company would continue, or was it...
Well, when I came in, I had written a letter to my friend Glenn Degner, and that was in early '37.
Mm-hmm.
And I frankly told him that we hope our creditors didn't push us, because if they did, well, it would have been...
Curtains.
Well, it would have been some form of bankruptcy, yeah.
Yeah.
But we survived that, and we developed some new products about that time. And we got into this freezing business for low-temperature rooms, primarily for ice cream hardening rooms. Previously, an ice cream hardening room was a big room. It had heavy coils down from the ceiling to about 6 foot high from the floor, and had coil shelves, and everybody would bring their ice cream packages in and put them on there from soft ice cream to harden them. And it took a day or so to harden them, and the rooms had to be shut down and defrosted every year for 2 or 3 days. And we developed a system where we put our unit on the outside the room and brought the air in at the ceiling, distributed it. It was an air change of twice every minute, 30-second air change in the room, and at low temperatures of 20 to 30 below zero. And then when at periods, they would shut it off, and they would bypass warm air through the unit on the outside and defrost it in a half hour and put it back on the room again. So that meant no more frost in the rooms, clean product, and instead of hardening it a day, they hardened the ice cream in hours.
They did, yeah.
And this was popular. In fact, we got to the point where we had 80% of all the ice cream hardening rooms in the country, a major plants, yeah. National Dairy, Beatrice Foods, Borden's, and
is that right?
All the West Coast people, yeah. Carnation and everybody, yeah.
Who were some of your chief design engineers that designed these things? You didn't do it yourself, did you?
No, well, I did some of it, of course.
Did some of it, yeah.
Actually, each unit was designed, custom-made.
Okay.
And so we had to get dimensions on the job site. And then we would go through the plant, and Bob Rowley was...
Sure, Bob Rowley.
Doing a lot of that at that time. And Andy Wodarczyk was, previous to that, was one of their engineers. But the sharp freeze business went very well, and then we got into air curtains in the early 60s, and that went real well. That was rather new for protecting doorways from infiltrating cold air or hot air, and infiltrating flies and contamination. And they were very effective, and so that was another major product.
Yes. You retired as president of the company when?
In about 76.
76.
Yeah.
And was that when the company was sold, or was it?
No, the company was sold in the middle 80s.
Okay.
To the Prospect Foundry in St. Paul, Minneapolis.
Yeah.
And they had some money, and they wanted to invest, and they bought the King Company. And then after about 3 years, the principals up there decided they wanted to cash in. So they sold their operation and our operation to Bear Stearns, the financial people, the brokers, big company. And since that, they've been doing well. They'd like to sell it now, but...
It must really touch your heart to see that operation out there.
Well, it does, and they've done so many things. And, of course, Cody Kennan is president, and Dave Nelson is sales manager for years. They did a good job of building it up,
They
too.
certainly have. They certainly have. But you were there during the tough times. During the tough times. And this is George A.M. Anderson. He is, at the time of our taping on our Owatonna As They Saw It, October the 8th of 1993, is 85 years young. And, of course, his father began the King Company, one of our fine industries here in Owatonna. Another subject that we want to address is the Owatonna Foundation, because George was a part of, in fact, at this particular point, still serves as president of the foundation. Is that right? Or are you still on the foundation?
No, I'm on the foundation.
Okay. Was president.
One of those things, I was looking forward to retirement from the foundation, and John Alexander was about to become president when John passed away.
Yeah.
We lost one of our great men.
We sure did.
And then Ken Wilcox has been president of the foundation.
That's right, yeah.
And they're doing a great job.
How did the Owatonna Foundation begin? When and how and why?
You know how many coffee groups there are.
There are a lot of them. And
well, at the old Owatonna Hotel, there used to be a coffee group. We'd get together about 8:15, 8:30 in the morning, and it consisted of Rube Kaplan, the two Alexanders, Mark and Don, Carl Jolly, John Buxton, Keen Young, and I hope there are others too, I'm sure I've forgotten. But,
and yourself.
And myself.
Yeah.
And we used to sit down there, and there were a bunch of people that had a great interest in Owatonna. And they were always trying to do something for Owatonna. And Rube Kaplan in particular felt that he wanted to do something, but he didn't have any, he was questioning how it would be handled after he was gone. We were aware of the fact that people had left big money for drinking fountains for the horses, but when they died, there were no horses. And that sort of thing. So Rube's idea, one of the things he wanted to do was put a road on the west side of the railroad tracks from Morehouse Park out to the gravel pit. And that was one of his dreams, and we finally got that dream through with the walkway.
That's right.
But then Cliff Summer came to Owatonna at the bank, and he joined the group. And I remember Cliff Summer said one day, well, if you people don't organize a foundation, I'm going to organize one for the church. So we got busy, and
that was kind
Sam Lord was in the group at that time, and Harold Nelson, the attorney, and so they were part of the original group, too, that formed the foundation.
A way to make, a way to really ensure that things were done in Owatonna on a continual basis.
Yeah, yes, and that was in 1957. And in 1957, before the foundation was actually formed by Rube Kaplan, had me buy 2 parcels of land from between the railroad tracks and the river. It was just north of the gravel pit. And then immediately when the foundation was formed, excuse me, when the foundation was formed, well, he gave that property to the foundation right there.
You did.
And later on, the tool company bought that building. It had been a poultry building, poultry equipment building, and they paid a high price on at auction to get it, so it could be preserved and not interfere with the future plans
of that parkway.
Of that parkway, that's right.
Yeah.
And
Rube never lived to see that dream, did he?
No, he never lived to see it, but he left a substantial amount of money. But he did designate it for that, but we knew that's what it went, and that's where it went. And that was around $300,000 that the foundation put into that walkway. And fortunately, the state came through and helped develop the gravel pit itself.
Yeah.
Now, the gravel pit itself, of course, was a source of gravel for all of Owatonna streets, and it had been pretty well worked out. And George Kohlmeyer got to the point where he was looking to the future, and he wondered what the hell to do with it. So he gave it to the foundation, and said they could take take over in 25 years. Well, I think after about 5 years, it was so well worked out that the foundation took it over at that time.
Is that right?
You
know. That's why they call it Lake Colmeyer.
That's why they call it Lake Colmeyer for George Colmeyer. And of course, George Colmeyer's father was the man that used to do the moving. He was on the city council and he used to move the house around.
Yeah, that's right. That's right, yes, indeed. I didn't realize that gravel from there came, and it was that's under the streets yet, I assume, right?
Yeah, sure it is under the streets, that's right.
Isn't that something, huh?
Yeah.
So the foundation did it officially in 1957. That was, you were on the first board, I assume,
yes.
Is that right?
And Keene Young was the first president.
Federated was a great contributor.
Federated was a great contributor. They were high on tennis, and they gave a substantial amount for a bubble.
That's
They
right.
built a bubble out here where the present tennis building is.
Yes.
And that got in, I think in getting that up, the foundation made a grant to the city, a loan to the city of $20,000. But of course, it was never paid back and never needed to be paid back because the building went down.
The building went down, yeah it did.
But then future plans, of course, with a tennis group putting out for funds and designating gifts to the foundation, plus contributions from Federated, made possible the tennis building.
Really, it did.
And that was the same pattern pretty much through the Four Seasons building. The hockey group started it, and they got groups going and made designated gifts to the foundation. And the foundation bought the Zamboni machine and some other contributions and made it possible, kicked it over, so it was a viable.
It did. It did.
Project,
It's a viable way for people to give for a project through a well, if nothing else, it's a tax benefit, right?
Well, that's right. Sure, tax-free gifts. Make it a tax-free gift. And those gifts were substantial. Excuse me for a minute here.
That's all right. Yeah. Let's take a look at some of those because there are indeed substantial gifts that have happened over the years by the foundation. It's unbelievable what is being done and currently is, and of course that's something that obviously is, well, it's going to be a part of Owatonna for all time. Let's just take a look.
Anybody wants a copy of these, they can get them by calling the Owatonna Foundation, or writing to Box 634, Owatonna Foundation.
Okay, all right.
But another outstanding gift was a designated gift. Received a sizable bequest from a grand old lady that made possible giving the senior place $380,000 for their new senior place. And also the tennis building was another designated gift. That was $157,000. The Capitol Woods Parkway, $298,000. Owatonna baseball boosters for the new park down there, $48,000. Those are some of the designated gifts. The designated gifts up through 1992 amounted to $1,921,000.
Isn't that something?
And then the non-designated gifts, which we were given to support groups in Owatonna, has now amounted to $1,184,000, or the total grants of over $3 million so far. And we're in the process of adding to that.
That's right.
Yeah.
Back in the early days of the beginning of the foundation, obviously you had to publicize yourself a little bit. You had to make yourself known.
Well, we had to. We weren't able to do too much of that, but except through personal contacts.
Yeah.
And of course, industries were great supporters. Federated contributed annually. So did OTC,
Mm-hmm.
and OTC had a policy of every time one of their employees or former employees passed away, they contribute $100 to the foundation.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Wasn't that something? And of course, in this day and age now, when you don't have that local ownership of industries in Owatonna, fortunately that has not deterred the success of the foundation. But I'll tell you, it's a different ballgame anymore.
Well, but then Viracon, later on Viracon became very strong supporters too. And Mr. Martineau made a large contribution of Viracon stock, which started off the program we have for giving high school students
That's right.
loan grants. Yeah.
Yes, yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
I don't know how many communities are fortunate to have a foundation like this. I'm sure there are some who do, but I think the concept was kind of we were one of the first.
Well, I think it was too, because Mankato didn't have anything like that. And John Alexander and I went over to Mankato one time and helped them form theirs, but theirs is formed differently than ours.
Mm-hmm.
They take care of running expenses. We do not take care of any maintenance expenses at all. All of our grants are for brick and mortar, except for the scholarships programs. And each one of our grants have to be responsible for helping a large number of people. Something has to be done that will help other people enjoy it.
Yeah.
And, of course, a lot of our grants go to support groups, too, for their furnishings and one another.
Yeah. This man has been an integral part of Owatonna. He has lived here all of his life, never had any real desire to leave town. Of course, you were forced to stay here when you were president of a company, right? But
well, I always enjoyed Owatonna. Of course, I was traveling at, one time I was traveling by train back in the 30s and 40s. And in those years, I spent as many as 50 nights a year on sleepers from one coast to the other.
You did, huh?
Yeah.
You learned how to get dressed and undressed in a minimum amount of space, didn't
that's
you?
right.
Huh?
But dealing with top people, and it's very interesting
Yeah.
how well we were received by them.
Yeah. They really put Owatonna on the map, no doubt about it. Well, George Anderson is, again, one of our pioneer industries here in Owatonna, and as you look at that industrial park today, it's unbelievable what Owatonna has indeed been able to maintain and have as a part of our community here.
Well, we appreciate it, Todd.
In that industrial sector.
And we look to, going to be great things for the foundation in the future when there needs some multi-million-dollar project.
You bet.
That the foundation can kick it over.
That's right.
No.
That's why it's so valuable, because it does offer that help.
And we still have to keep building up our amount of reserves we have.
That's important.
And
any gift is welcome. It doesn't have to be a substantial one. It can be from individuals, right? That's important.
Small gifts, we've had many small bequests for $5,000, $10,000 and whatnot, which we're very grateful for. And from the time they were given until they were cashed in, had increased in worth quite a bit.
You bet.
Yeah.
Owatonna as they saw it. George A.M. Anderson of Owatonna, October 8th of '93, at the time of this particular video taping, 85 years young. And it's been a pleasure for me to know him all of these years, and I appreciate you coming and spending time with us.
Well, we appreciate that, Todd, and we appreciate all you've done for Owatonna, too, through your radio and your association here, and your driving buses.
You can always find something to do in Owatonna, can't you? Huh?
Right.
You sure can. All right. George A.M. Anderson, Owatonna as they saw it.